Welcome into the Inside Indiana Show. I'm Editor-in-Chief Ken Bikoff along with publisher Ed Magoni. And the Hoosiers pick up their first win of the season last week at Memorial Stadium, a 38-21 win over South Carolina State in a game, Ed, that many thought that the Hoosiers should win. And, when they play an FCS level school, they really should win. But it wasn't the tightest game that they've ever seen. Hoosiers commit 20 penalties. That's a school record for penalties. And as we roll a little bit of highlights, what are your thoughts on just how the Hoosiers came out and played against the Bulldogs?
Well, it was certainly a sloppy game. I mean, for both teams. I mean, there were 31 total penalties committed between the two teams, 20 of them for Indiana. And I just don't think Indiana ever played that crisply throughout the game. I mean, certainly they had some good drives. They were able to sustain drives for the most part, overcome some of the penalties that they committed. And the defense, for the most part, was able to get off the field on third down despite giving up a couple of big plays here and there. But at the same time, you expect Indiana to really handle a FCS school, and I don't think they ever actually handled South Carolina State the way everyone projected they would or felt they would, physically, and certainly not mentally, just because they committed 20 penalties.
Yeah, and 20 turnovers might have been a very different game. But the Hoosiers, I think most disturbing for me, they never really got, South Carolina State never really got within 10 points once Indiana put 2 touchdowns on the board. South Carolina State never got within 10 points again, but those mistakes were being made by seniors. Left tackle Andrew McDonald had a number of penalties. Wide receiver DeMarlo Belcher gets a false start penalty on, a wide receiver getting a false start penalty is unacceptable at any level because they're not actually listening for a snap count. There were some young guys, however, that played along that offensive line. Kevin Wilson showing that he's willing to shake things up. How much of an impact, and what are your thoughts on just basically how those freshmen played in that game?
Well, they certainly had their bright spots and their dark spots, I guess. I mean, it was a matter of, they committed a couple of pre-snap penalties, false starts, but for the most part, the holding calls weren't against the younger kids, at least not that I can recall. Yeah. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 of them, but most of them were committed by the more veteran players, and that is a frightening fact, I think. But the running game wasn't outstanding. D'Angelo Roberts rushed for 100 yards. Certainly, that was a nice, productive day for him. But that was he really did most of his damage he did all of his damage in the second half. Yeah. Really, not again as South Carolina State kind of wore down a little bit. I think that kind of showed up on the field. It just. They were never that crisp, and you expect Indiana to come out, like I said, and handle a team like that pretty easily. And just for the sake of surrendering big plays on defense, and also just not being able to push South Carolina State around as much as you'd expect Indiana to be, that was kind of disappointing to see.
Well, I know that it's a team that is only playing its third game of the year under a new system. And the win's a win. And Indiana did not play well, don't get me wrong, but they did do what they needed to do. They beat a team that they are supposed to beat, and that is certainly something that they could hang their hat on. However, the 20 penalties certainly is a problem, and it has to do with mental discipline and with concentration. And it's certainly not something that head coach Kevin Wilson is going to put up with the fact that he mentioned in his weekly press conference.
Well, yeah, it's frustrating for all of them, and you coddle the young guys and say it's an excuse because he's a young guy. When you're making a bunch of mistakes, to me, it's a couple things. What's the guy's confidence level or maturity or thought process that's causing him to think about things where he's missing an assignment, missing a play, having a penalty. There's a lot of football's far from a game of perfect, so there's a lot of errors. So whether it be missed assignments, blown coverages, missed tackles. I mean, there's always the negatives that you try to eliminate, the self-inflicted wounds, as Coach Hepp and I used to call them at Miami of Ohio years ago. So you try to decrease those each and every week. And last week, those crept in really big. First game, reasonably clean, not a lot of effort. Now our effort's picked up. We're getting a little bit sloppy. Now we got to get it balanced and get some of the sloppiness back out.
Now, Ed, of course, one of the issues for the Hoosiers is to make sure that they avoid giving up big plays, and especially in the run game. They gave up a 69-yard touchdown pass, which in and of itself was a bad play for a number of reasons. The coaches said that the play call was on them. Senior safety Chris Adkins took a bad angle on it as well. But that was in the passing game. The run game, though, the Hoosiers showed a little bit of improvement, I think, over what they had maybe done in the first couple weeks.
Well, I thought they played pretty well against Virginia against the run game. I think they continued to take steps toward figuring out what they need to do and to control an opponent's run game. I thought they were really solid up the middle for the most part, especially in the second half. But they still were kind of soft on the perimeter. It's people missing tackles and the corners maybe not, or the corners and safeties not crashing as hard in run support as they'd like to see. And the ends have to do a better job of controlling the outside run and maintaining contain on the outside. I think that's a big problem for them. If once they get past the defensive end, you're unleashing a sometimes bigger back on smaller defenders, and IU isn't. They're kind of short at linebacker right now, so they're a little bit smaller out there than they were. And I think that's what's causing the problems on the perimeter as far as stopping the run.
The Hoosiers definitely did a decent job of keeping the running game in check against South Carolina State. They're going to face a bigger challenge against their next opponent. And when we come back, we'll take a look at how the Hoosiers might fare against North Texas.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please.
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Ken Bikoff with Ed Magoni and the Hoosiers heading down to Denton, Texas. And you know what that means, Ed? Well, Ed, the Hoosiers taking on the Mean Green of North Texas. This is a team that's 0-3 to open the season. They've given up at least 41 points in each of their first three games. They are, though, by the numbers and giving up yards, the worst defense in the Football Bowl subdivision, 120th, giving up 560 yards a game. However, this is a team that has played the likes of Alabama, of Houston, of Florida International, three teams that have either received votes or are ranked number 2 in the country, or highly ranked in the country anyway. Is this a game that can be a little bit of a trap game for IU?
Oh, I definitely think it can be, in my opinion. I mean, they're on the road. This is their first true road game because, when they went to Indianapolis, that was kind of a neutral site game, even though it was considered a Ball State home game. Plus, they only had to drive an hour north to get to the stadium. This is where, you're boarding a plane for the first time. You're flying down there. You're staying in a hotel that isn't your normal routine hotel. The whole mindset just changes when you go on the road. And, like you said, I mean, North Texas has seen teams that are better than Indiana. I mean, no offense to the Hoosiers, but Alabama's awfully darn good. And Alabama may have beaten them by over 40 points, but at the same time, North Texas scheduled them and is willing to play teams that good. And, they're stepping above their outside their comfort zone to play Alabama and Houston and Florida International. And, nothing the Hoosiers are going to be able to throw at them is going to be able to, match up with what Alabama they've already seen from Alabama. So nothing's going to come as a surprise from the Hoosiers to North Texas.
Now, North Texas, of course, they're playing in a new stadium. They're opening a new place. It's not the first game in the new place. They played Houston there already, but it is a situation where Indiana in the past has gone to Western Kentucky, gone to Akron to play these games. Now, a lot of teams don't have to go play on the road at mid-majors. The Hoosiers do, though. They're one of the teams that will go out. The fact that they're going to be playing in a smaller venue, a tight-knit venue, is something that shouldn't really impact the Hoosiers very much at all.
No, I mean, you're right. IU does have experience traveling to MAC schools, and they played at UConn a couple years back when UConn was a relatively unheard of Big East, just a newcomer to the Big East. So they have experience traveling to these other programs and smaller schools and smaller environments. But North Texas football is big in Texas, as everyone knows, and I think they've probably, especially the running back that we're going to talk about here, but they've got some good athletes, some good speed. I mean, even the second and third tier players in Texas are pretty darn good ball players. And Indiana can't take the mean green lightly and expect to waltz in there and just show up and win. I mean, they have to bring their game and come to play. And if they do that, they're going to be okay. But if they think they're going to get away with committing 20 penalties at North Texas and winning by 17 points, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and like I brought up the defense and the struggles that they've had in stopping some teams. The Hoosiers haven't done a great job in stopping the run, and North Texas has a running back named Lance Dunbar, who you're going to be hearing a lot about over the next few days as the Hoosiers prepare for games. But the Hoosier coaching staff certainly says that this kid might be the best running back that they face all year. He ran for 1,500 yards last year, had 300 yards in receptions. He's averaging 2.7 yards a carry, I think, through the first 3 games. So he's not off to a great start. But those opponents are really the challenge, and especially the kind of runner he is. He has the speed to go outside. He's a smaller guy, and the Hoosiers might run into some trouble stopping him.
Yeah, and I think if you're North Texas, you're looking to get your great back on track, and after facing 3 very strong teams, they're probably looking at the Hoosiers and thinking, well, maybe we can run on these guys, and they're going to try to do everything they can. I'm sure he's going to carry the ball a lot against Indiana. And they're going to hope to get him back on track in time for the Sun Belt Conference, which is the conference they play in, and see if they can't get him on track for their conference season, like Indiana's trying to build some momentum heading into Big Ten play.
And the Hoosiers certainly, they're hoping to establish the run early, whether it be D'Angelo Roberts or Stephen Houston, or the guy who's going to be speaking to Inside Indiana's Courtney Cronin next, Matt Perez.
It's a new year. There's a new buzz. And there's a new Inside Indiana magazine. For more than 20 years, Inside Indiana has been your best source for the kind of in-depth coverage of Hoosier athletics you crave, and now the best just got better. By calling 800-282-GO-IU, you can experience 12 packed issues dedicated to Indiana athletics in full-color glossy brilliance for only $49.95. But that's not all. You'll also receive access to our new Inside Indiana Express edition online, featuring game previews, news, photos, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? To stay up to date on the Kevin Wilson era and all the excitement surrounding Tom Crean's Hoosiers, plus all the news you want on the rest of Hoosier athletics, call 800-282-GO-IU today. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Now, Ed, before we went to break, we talked about the Hoosiers wanting to establish a running game. They got a boost out of D'Angelo Roberts last week, picking up 100-plus yards. They've seen flashes from Stephen Houston. They've gotten 4 touchdowns this year from redshirt freshman Matt Perez, and he certainly is a key to the Hoosiers' running attack this year. And Matt Perez right now is out at Memorial Stadium with our own Courtney Cronin.
Thanks, Ed and Ken Joyd, alongside redshirt sophomore running back Matt Perez. I'm Courtney Cronin. Matt, this offense has definitely improved from week 2 to 3. I mean, you put up 319 yards total offense against Virginia, and then 557 yards of total offense against South Carolina State this past weekend. A lot of that can be attributed to the run game.
Yeah, I mean, Coach started off saying the season we need to be able to establish a run game to open up the pass and the play action pass and everything else. And I think our linemen definitely answered the challenge in the last 2 games of coming off the ball and moving people. And then, the running backs, we were able to hit some holes and make some plays.
Now, definitely one big part of this offense was the fact that with the run game, D'Angelo Roberts, 107 yards. I mean, it's all been talked about before. But, this explosive weapon literally came out of nowhere. His first chance to start. How do you take that as, a guy he was kind of following your lead for a while?
I mean, you knew it was only a matter of time before he had the game that he had, because he's a special talent, and I mean he's really fast. He's a tough kid, and you kind of knew that he could make plays happen. And against South Carolina State, everyone saw it.
Now, one thing that people noticed was there were a lot of penalties last week, like against South Carolina State, 19 to be exact, which was a school record. Do you attribute that to, a sloppiness of effort in practice?
I would say probably maybe a little bit, or maybe not. Once we got up, we kind of took our foot off the pedals. But, it was just kind of one of those things where we mentally, at that point in the game, or throughout the whole game, weren't really dialed in. And it was just, dumb mistakes that definitely can be fixed.
Now, Coach said that was something that you guys weren't going to worry about. Going back into practice, it was something that, just focus and fix it. But one thing he talks about with practice is being a good practice player. And over the years past, it doesn't seem like that was necessarily one of the points that was harped on the most. But what do you take away from that? I mean, to be able to solidify your role on team, you specifically, as a running back, you had guys older than you. Unfortunately, they got injured. But now it seems like when they come back, they still have to work their way in. It's not the whole seniority type role where they're just automatically earning their spots back.
Yeah, I mean, practice is where you earn your spot in the game, and if you play hard in practice, you're going to play hard in the game. You can't just, go through the motions in practice and then Saturday expect to turn it on, and that's kind of what coaches has been preaching to us, and it's definitely true.
All right, and one last question. You guys head to Texas this weekend. It's the last road non-conference game before heading into Big Ten play. That's got to be pretty exciting. I mean, you're going pretty far from home this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, going in there and, get to quiet a loud away crowd down. So.
All right, thanks, Matt, so much. Ed and Ken, let's head back to you.
Thanks a lot, Courtney. Now, Ed, the Hoosiers certainly have running backs that can raise some eyebrows. D'Angelo Roberts, Stephen Houston, Matt Perez. These guys are really making things happen, and they're making people kind of forget about Darius Willis.
Yeah, that's for sure. You don't hear that talk, where's Darius Willis anymore, because these guys they're producing enough yards for IU's running game right now to where they're becoming the focus of the talk. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, they're all three young guys. They all have a lot of eligibility remaining. They're going to continue to get better game in and game out. And they all bring a little something different to the table, like you mentioned. I mean, Perez and Houston are a little bit more power-oriented. D'Angelo Roberts is a little bit quicker back, but he still runs very hard. Perez is a great short yardage back. And, Willis, obviously, he's capable of being an outstanding producer for the Hoosiers, but, it's a good thing that Indiana the talk isn't on Darius Willis anymore, because if it was, then that means these other three guys wouldn't be getting the job done, but they seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, and it's a nice problem to have all these running backs to go along with all these wide receivers, and it certainly will help the Hoosiers. Now, the Hoosiers picked up their first win of the season last week. Will they pick up their first road win of the year? When we come back, me and Ed will tell you what we think.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Ed, it's time to jump on the hot seat. Hoosiers, Mean Green, who you picking?
I think it's going to be closer than people think, but I ultimately think the Hoosiers will prevail in this one and get their first road win, Kevin Wilson's first FBS victory. But I don't think it's going to come easily. I think the Hoosiers need to establish the ground game again, like they did against South Carolina State. And if they do that, then they're going to be able to throw the ball very successfully against one of the worst ranked defenses, not necessarily. I mean, they face some good competition, but IU's passing attack is pretty solid as well, and they've also been able to run the ball a little bit recently. So if they can continue to improve in the running game, I think the defense will take care of business enough so on the defense side of the ball to get Indiana to the victory.
Yeah, this is kind of a measuring stick game in my eyes for the Hoosiers. Lance Dunbar is certainly going to be a challenge for him, but I think the Hoosiers walk away with the win in this one. It is a team to where they aren't playing very good defense, and I don't care if you are playing better opponents. They're still giving up 41 points, 41 in 2 games, 48 in another one, against the likes of, Florida International and Houston might be good teams that are developing. But Indiana going on the road, I think that this is a measuring stick game, and the sloppiness of last week, I think, is going to help focus the team to not overlook the mean green, and they're going to walk away. The Hoosiers are going to walk away with the win this week. Well, it's time for us to walk away with the Inside Indiana show. So for Ed Magoni, I'm Ken Bikoff. Thanks for watching. Pace yourself.